My name is Iris. I work for the Scottish Environment Protection Agency, or SEPA. Our role is to protect the environment from people and to protect people from the environment. And today I wanted to share with you how you can help us. Do you remember the last time it rained? I feel like it rains quite a bit in Scotland. And at SEPA, we are really interested in rainfall. We want to find out where it rains, when it rains, and how much it rains. And all that information, it's called data. To help us collect this data, in many places around Scotland, we've got these rainfall gauging stations. That's one of my colleagues there, and he is a hydrologist. Now, the cylinder he's holding collected the rainfall over a whole month, and he is pouring all that water into a measuring jug that allows him then to read how much rain has fallen in that month. Now, that big funnel in the front, it's a different type of rain gauge. It's got a spoon inside it, and that spoon slowly fills up with water as it rains, and then it tips out. And the more it rains, the more tipping it does. So it's a tipping rain gauge. And we basically count how many tips this happen, and that tells us how much it's raining. Here's another one of our rain gauges there. So at the back there is the cylinder that's buried in the ground and collects the data. And at the front there is that tipping rain gauge. And there's also a helper that helps us keep the grass low as well at this rain gauge, which is brilliant. Have you seen one of these rain gauges in your school? Maybe in your playground area? This is a gauge that needs to be read every single day. So it collects all the rain that falls over 24 hours. And you can then record how much rain has fallen. And it's also important to record if no rain has fallen at all. And then the data can be submitted on our web portal. So this here is a picture of that Rainfall Observer web portal. And you're able to see all the data you submit, but also the data submitted by other people. So there are other schools that are collecting data, but also other people that help us record how much rain is falling. And one of those rainfall observers collected data every day for over 55 years. Now, as all this rain falls, eventually most of it ends up in our rivers. And so we're also very interested in collecting data on our rivers. So this is another one of my colleagues, and she's wading through that river, and that big pole measures how deep the water is, but it's also got this impeller at the bottom of it, and that measures how fast the water is flowing. So we're measuring the depth and the speed of the river. Again, we've got many sites around Scotland where we do this, and in some cases, like here on the Clyde, the river is so wide and so deep we can't actually walk through it. And so we use these remote-controlled boats to help us gather all that data and measure how deep the river is and how fast it's flowing. And we even do that when it's snowing. But we can also have a bit of fun and build snowmen, for example. So how does all that data help that you collect and that we collect? Well, it's quite important to us, because one of the things that we do to help protect people is to issue flood warnings. So we constantly monitor how much rain is falling and what the rivers are doing, and then we issue flood warnings if the rivers are going to spill over their banks and flood people or flood fields, for example. Flooding can be quite dangerous, and so it's really important to us to issue these flood warnings. And your data really helps us check where the rain is falling and how heavily it is raining. This is one of the areas where we issue flood warnings. This is Pollock Country Park. And it's really important there that we issue the warnings because there's this police station and they've also got police dogs there. So when we think the river is going to spill over, we issue that warning and the police are then able to evacuate the dogs and keep everybody safe. We also produce these maps, and they show where there's a risk of flooding. You can see these maps for free on our website. And we have 3 different kinds of flooding. We've got the purple areas, and they are flooding from rainfall or surface water. So all the rain basically falls onto the land and then creates giant puddles. Then those light blue areas there, they are river flooding. And there's the water in the river, but when it gets too deep, the water comes out of the river and causes flooding. And the green area there is coastal flooding. Now this is a map of Glasgow, and you might not have known that the tide comes all the way up past the Science Centre in Glasgow. So it's quite far from the beach for many perhaps, but we do still get coastal flooding in Glasgow. Luckily only rarely, but we do have to keep monitoring it and keep issuing those flood warnings when that is likely to happen. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. There are things that you can do. So first of all, it's a good idea to go on our website and check if your house or your school is at risk of flooding. And then you can make a plan if you know that there is a risk of flooding. You can sign up to receive those free flood warnings. And then think about where are you going to go if there is a risk of flooding? What do you need to take with you? Where are you going to meet up if you're not all together when that is happening? And you can make a flood kit. So you can pack important items such as a mobile phone, a battery bank, a warm hat, maybe medicine, maybe a radio, all those kinds of important items. And if you plan that in advance, you've got them all together and you don't need to panic and think about it if flooding does happen. Now we know our climate is changing. And in Scotland, we expect that means that in winter, it'll be warmer and wetter, but there will be less snow. In the summer, we expect there'll be more thunderstorms. And those thunderstorms are what causes that surface water flooding because it rains very heavily and the drains can't cope with all the rain, and then it floods roads and sometimes even houses. And at the coast, we're expecting rising sea levels. And if the sea gets higher, then there's also going to be more coastal flooding. So I hope that you've seen that it's really important to us to collect lots of data and information on rainfall, and hopefully you're inspired to keep a really good record and submit it on our Rainfall Observers portal every day or maybe once a week for all the days of the week. If you've got any questions though, please do get in touch and I'll be happy to help. And thank you very much for listening to me today.